had a lot of requests to tie a foam pattern for a tutorial video. So I'm finally getting around to doing that. It's been a while getting this setup dialed in, but I think I finally got it. So I'm going to start with the one that I've been calling the Doughboy hopper. It's been pretty successful this year. I won't call it a purely original fly because it's a mashup of a number of different patterns that I've found to be successful over the years, and I've just kind of modified it to fit what I want it to do. So without further ado, here's the Doughboy hopper. I'm tying it on the 718 fire hole. This one's a number 10. You can do it anywhere from 12 up to number 4 if you really wanted to. I like the 718 because it's got a nice wide gap and it helps kill the foam fly. If you ever cast a lot of foam, if you don't have a heavy enough hook with a wide enough gape, it'll often flip upside down or land sideways, not how you want it to. So this hook works really well for that. Rarely does it land how you don't want it to. So we're going to start with that. I've got UTC 140 in brown that I'm using. I like to use the 140, especially I'm using some double layered foam, some 4mm foam in this bug, and it helps to cinch that down. So we'll start with the bottom layer of foam actually, and what I've got there, I'll cut that just into a point. So I've got a piece that's about as wide as the hook gape there, and I'm just going to cut that to a little point. This one I had previously had it cut for something else, I don't know, but I'm going to trim it differently anyhow. So, see, I've got it trimmed to a point there. Now I'm going to take and punch that guy onto the tip of that hook. I got to pull the hook out just for a second to feed the foam around on here. And then sometimes if I'm feeling extra ambitious and I want to shape that foam a little bit, I'll hit it with the lighter. You can kind of stretch that point out and smooth it out a little bit, but for these purposes I'm not going to do that. So I'm going to wrap back to the bend. I'm going to tie this foam in, and then just with a couple of wraps I kind of pinch that so it wraps around the hook a little bit. You can see I'm only going to make 2 wraps because when I put the top piece on, I'm going to come back over top of that. So we can see that clearly enough, that little point sticking back there kind of gives the butt of a hopper or terrestrial. I call it a hopper, but I mean really you can fish it as a beetle, a hopper, or a stonefly even. Okay, and then I take the top piece of foam and I cut that into a V. It kind of gives the appearance of a, I don't know, I think it can look like a tail of a stonefly, or it can look like a wing sticking out on a laid back stonefly or a hopper. I don't know. I like the way it looks. So I'm going to take that, I'm going to line this up so that the points of the top foam, that thick foam, don't stick quite back as far as the tail. And when I tie this in, it's actually going to flare these points out a little bit, so they're going to stick back even less. So I'm going to take one semi-tight wrap, and then one real tight wrap, and then one more for good measure. And then I'm going to pull that top foam back. I'm going to sneak my thread up through, and then make a few wraps to where I want to put the next segment. And then, as I'm doing this, I always make the segment in the bottom first, and I'll show you why at the end, but it kind of tucks that bottom foam up inside of the top. Gives a cool, you'll actually get that tri-colored look from the bottom with the dark sticking over the cream color in the middle, and then the tan is your bottom. So now I'm going to make the next segment, and I'm going to repeat this step a couple times. So there's that. just going to do one wrap. The less you have to compress that foam, the more it's going to float. So the less wraps I have to make, the better this thing's going to be. Now, I don't really get too concerned about the foam rolling over. Once it's all tied in, you don't have too much problem. But if you struggle with that, one thing you can do is put a dab of super glue right before you tie down each segment, and that'll help keep it from rolling both when you're tying it and when you're fishing it. So, but that's all in preference thing. So now I'm going to do the same thing I did, advance my thread, sneak it between the two pieces, and then I'm going to make one more segment here. I'm going to wrap that foam around the hook just a little bit on the bottom. It helps pull it up inside. I'm going to make that front segment. Now, one thing, if you want to make these segments kind of pop a little bit more, make them a little more bulgy, you can take and push your foam back before you tie it in. I'll show you what that does here. And you can always spread that back and forth. So you can see you got kind of this big bulging segment there. And I've found that doing that can actually create a lot more flotation. So if you want a fly that can support a dropper, or you want something that's just going to float all day long, make those segments bigger and puffier. That's gonna help with that. So now I'm going to finish this off. This is it for the segment parts. If you prefer, like if I'm tying on a bigger, like on a size 8, sometimes I'll do it with three of these segments rather than just the 2. You always want to give yourself room enough to tie the head in. So I haven't really found that the 3 versus the 2, or vice versa, works better than the other as far as fishing goes, but it does give a little bit of a different appearance. I think typically when I'm tying this for a stonefly, like if I'm doing it in a yellow or in an orange, I'll do more the 3 segment, but as a generic terrestrial, I like to do it with the 2. And then, so I'm going to trim these back as close to that segment as I can. It doesn't have to be perfect, because I'm going to take and wrap over that foam anyways. But now you can see what I was talking about, where you have the brown or the tan foam on the bottom, and then the cream and the dark brown kind of stick out beyond that. Gives kind of a cool look from the bottom. Compressed here. I'm going to tie in the wings. I like these. I like to use a synthetic wing on this one. I don't necessarily like the look as much, but I like how it fishes. You cast it 1 or 2 times and it's completely dry, and that's one thing I like about this bug, is it's low maintenance. You can fish it all day long. So that's the purpose of using the synthetic. It lays pretty naturally. These are the package is called fish fibers. I think like an EP fiber or something like that is pretty much the same. Just some type of synthetic coarse fiber. I like something that has a little bit of that crinkle for the texture. Gives it a more natural look. So I'm going to tie this in with the end at about where the tail of the fly is. And then I'm going to fold it back to create a second wing and tie up over that. Capture those in. Trim that back even, so you've kind of got 2 wings, and then once we tie the head in, it'll lay that foam over top of it and keep those wings a little bit flatter. So now we're going to do the foam head here, doing it bullet head style, just like Cheech does on his stone flopper. So I've got 2 pieces for the head. I've got the chocolate for the top, just the 2mm foam, and then tan for the bottom. For the top, I've got both pieces trimmed to a point, and that just helps when you're tying in. Makes it a little bit easier. So when I start tying these in, I want to come back about halfway about where the head is. I'm going to tie these in kind of as far up that point as I can. Having that point in there just helps you be able to grab that foam a little bit easier. And then I want to wrap this up so that it's pushed up tight behind that eye. You find if you don't have it pushed up tight, when you pull it back, that you'll have some thread exposed, and well, the fish probably don't care. It bugs me. Now I'm going to tie the bottom end, doing the same thing. come back to the middle here, get a hold of that as far up the point as I can. Come back here, wrap that thing up right up behind the eye. Make sure you got it nice and tight behind the eye. It doesn't have to be pretty under there because you're going to cover that all up. Now I'm going to fold these back, make sure I don't have any thread exposed there. Looks pretty good. Come back here. I'm going to tie off right where the wing's tied in. Go 2 wraps on the top. And then, so I'm not fighting the hook gap here, I'm going to trim that piece out. Got a nice pretty head. And now it doesn't really matter what order you do this in. I like to trim these first and then tie my legs in, but you could tie your legs and then trim everything off once you've got it all finished up. Up to you. But I like to trim this top to a little bit of a V. Let's see, I've got that. I might trim it a little shorter, but that's fine. And then trim that one. I like to trim that one pretty short, and then I'll come back and trim the little corners off of that, so it kind of has a smooth transition from the head to the body. So now you can see what we got there. We're just about done. I'm going to tie in some just standard medium round rubber legs. And this one I'm doing red. Done red, tan works well, or like a barred. The centipede and the black, red, and yellow, I really like that color. But for now I'm just using the red on this. I like the way the red looks with the brown, and it's caught a lot of fish for me, so I'm going to keep doing it. So we'll start by tying these in. I'll do them on your side so you can see how I do this. I'm going to do double legs, tie them both in at the same time. Go one, I'm actually going to do 2 wraps there. Just make sure you find that groove where you tied the head in. Keep it clean. Then I'm just looping those around to the other side. I'm going to tie them in on the other side. And if you get them right in between the top and bottom pieces of foam, those legs will sit pretty nicely. So now, before I trim these, get them situated how I want, I'm going to whip finish this thing. And then, because I don't want to put too much thread on here, compressing my foam, I'm going to leave it at that. And then I'm going to take just a dab of super glue. Take just a dab of super glue on the end of my bodkin here. I'm going to put a little drop on this side, then 1 drop on the other side, right on top of the finishing thread wraps. And that'll keep both those legs secured from sliding back and forth, and acts kind of as your head cement. So now I'm going to take and trim these legs about like that. Nothing too scientific. And then the ones on that side on the back actually look pretty good, so I'm going to try to match those over here. And that's what you got. Little Doughboy hopper. Doughboy terrestrial, whatever you want to call it. It works pretty good. I like the way you get the multicolor showing out at the bottom. Those legs fit right into the head, and fish is pretty dang good. So this is my first tutorial video I've done on my own. Appreciate it if you give me any feedback, if there's anything I can do better, or maybe what you'd like to see in the next one. So, thanks for watching.